Warning, the Dub Talk podcast contains language and content that may not be suitable for younger audiences. Listener discretion is advised. There will also be spoilers for various anime throughout the course of this episode. Please use caution in case we discuss a series that you haven't finished yet. Finally, the opinions expressed are those of the individual participants and may not reflect the Dub Talk podcast as a whole. Enjoy the show. Hello, one and all, and welcome to Dub Talk, the podcast where we discuss the latest and greatest in English dubs. My name is Stephanie, and tonight I am joined by Amon and Patrick.
Hey, hey.
Hello.
Hello. Alright, I hope you boys are ready to go on an epic adventure with me tonight, as we get to talk about another good old Studio Ghibli movie. But it isn't just any old Ghibli movie. No, sir. Tonight we'll be talking about the most recent film in the Ghibli pantheon and from famed director Hayao Miyazaki. That's right, we're here to talk about the 2024 Academy Award-winning film, The Boy and the Heron.
Oh, crap. We're talking about an award winner tonight, aren't we? I should probably go put on some pants.
That would help. That would help a lot.
Don't worry, Patrick. No one at home knows what you're wearing.
They can only take guesses. But I think this is the first time we are actually talking about an award-winning film. Or Academy Award-winning film specifically. Yeah. So...
We've probably talked about something that won an award in a different country before, but we don't pay attention to those because they're not broadcast on ABC. So, that's what we got.
Pretty much.
Whoops. Anyway, if you've yet to hear about this film, I don't know how you passed on that, but alright. Here's a quick summary for you guys. After losing his mother during the war, young Mahito moves to his family's estate in the countryside. There, a series of mysterious events leads him to a secluded and ancient tower, home to a mischievous, gray heron. When Mahito's new stepmother disappears, he follows the Grey Heron into a fantastic world shared by the living and the dead. As he embarks on an epic journey, Mahito must uncover the secrets of his world and the truth about himself. Yeah, that's as vague of a summary as you can get with this movie, I think, because this movie's just wild.
There's a lot happening.
It's a lot. Anyway... this is a very interesting movie. Usually a lot of, it took, at least 7 years to make. Miyazaki came out of frickin' retirement for, the second time again? To do another movie?
It's unclear to me how much of his earlier retirements were actually quote-unquote retirements, because I got the impression that, they did not even last a full calendar year before he broke it. This one did go for a few actual years before he got sick and tired of it, and got tired of, I guess, picking up trash in his neighborhood, and was like, I need to make a movie. I'm going stir crazy here.
I need to do something productive with my life.
Miyazaki's strong gonna die at his animating table energy, that guy. Real strong.
No, 100%. And you can kind of see this, and a lot of people, I think, from my understanding, have referred to this movie as kind of his magnum opus a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much of his magnum opus as, Spirited Away was, which is another, or is, I should say, because this could be considered, Boy and the Heron, I think, is more of his magnum opus than Spirited Away ever was. But yeah, because Spirited Away is the other Academy Award winning film in the Ghibli pantheon as well, which I'm surprised we haven't covered yet either.
I feel like we've avoided a lot of the Miyazaki movies because they're too obvious, and usually we want to cover other things at summer at the movies, etc. One day.
That's also true. One day.
One day.
We did just do Princess Mononoke over the summer, too, so...
Yep.
Because that was the first Ghibli movie we actually talked about on Summer at the Movies, I think.
Yes.
So, that was interesting. Anyways, as always, we're going to be going through the film from the beginning to end, all the while discussing the film, its cast, and our overall thoughts on the English dub. Are you boys ready for this long, crazy journey of ours?
Yep.
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. So let's start with the ADR staff. So we have an ADR director and someone on script adaptation. The person on the script adaptation also, funny enough, serves as one of 2 casting directors for the English dub. So our script adaptation, surprise, not so surprise. This dub was produced by the wonderful folks at NYAV Post. So, you know what that means. For script adaptation, we have Stephanie Shea, and for our ADR director, we have Michael Sinter-Nicholas. Stephanie Shea has written for other projects such as Fooly Cooly Progressive, Alternative, Gurunje, and Showgaze.
I'm sorry, what?
Film
What?
Over the Wall.
What?
There's 4 different Fooly Coolies
No.
sequels.
Steph? Grunge.
Hi.
Like the musical
Grunge.
genre. It's just grunge. That's the joke.
I quit. I fucking quit.
I'm sorry.
I
I won't interrupt
Time
you
to go
again. I'm
home.
sorry.
I was trying to be Japanese and it didn't work.
Well, at least we got our Patreon clip early.
And cut and
Lord.
print. That was fucking fast. Anyway, other scripts that Stephanie Shea has had her wonderful hands on include films such as Lou Over the Wall and Night is Short, Walk On Girl. And she is also serving as one of the casting directors for the English dub. As for Michael Sinter-Nicholas, he has been the ADR director for films such as Belle, and then the short Magnetic Rose from the film Memories, as well as the ADR director for Fooly Cooly Alternative, Progressive, and Showgaze. Grunge is not in here. Yeah, that's the one he didn't direct for some reason, I guess. And I think Stephanie directed that one. Alright, so starting off with our thoughts on the directing and writing, how do we feel about the directing and writing on the film here?
I mean, script writing is pretty polished, as you would expect from a Studio Ghibli film. The actual directing, casting, and all that kind of stuff. Ghibli movies are really interesting in that respect because you really learn which actors do their own ADR. Because these are usually the ones where I don't know who came up with the idea to do it, but they're usually pretty star-studded.
Yeah, Ghibli movies are one of those, yeah.
Being distributed by Disney for that long a period of time will do it.
For the most part, I didn't pick out any particular performance that felt off.
Mm-hmm.
Which tends to be the big complaint of these bigger scale Ghibli dubs, is that there's at least one actor that just kind of either doesn't fit the character or just doesn't feel like they know what they're doing.
See, what is interesting, and I may as well say this now, in terms of finding credits for the cast members we're going to talk about tonight, I purposely tried to make sure that I found voiceover roles to talk about, whether that is in other animated works, whether it's animated films or cartoons, or even in video games. And out of the cast that we have, only one person has had no prior voice acting experience. One person. So I think, personally, I think the casting is very interesting, and how it was handled was, I think, really well done. I mean, Michael and Stephanie are no strangers to, obviously, they're no strangers to the dubbing world, and of course, they know how important of a film Boy and the Heron is. So they are, the vibe is they definitely are going to do their damnedest to make sure it's like a top tier English dub of sorts. I do have a minor complaint, and it's actually kind of on the writing side, but it could actually be leading more into translation territory instead of writing. There are a couple of times, I know it happened once with Shoichi, and then I think once also maybe with Kiriko, where some of the dialogue seemed like it was a little bit weird at times. And by weird, I mean, I wrote one down for Shoichi. Something about, like, the trains, how they're not running because of accidents, and then immediately he's like, oh, you need to get better, Mahito, it's all good. Like, it's like a huge run-on sentence, if that makes sense. And it's like a 180 heel turn to get into that part of the sentence. And I'm like, where did the train thing come from, first of all? And second of all, we immediately flopped over to this. I think that's more of a translation issue, though. At least that's the vibe I get, a translation trying to adapt it into something that's going to work with the lip flaps and everything. But that's my only gripe, I think, with the writing end. That might not actually be a writing thing. And there's only one reason why I'm here and I wanted to do this episode. And we'll get to that much later, because good lord. Amon, what do you think?
Speaking on this, I'm around the time the movie came out in the United States. Variety did an article about the dub, which if you haven't read it, you should go read it now. If we're smart, we'll remember to put a link to it in the description, because I think it is actually pretty illuminating. It's more description I've seen go into the process of dubbing a movie like this, especially one that is mostly featuring actors who, whether or not they do their own ADR, are generally not voice actors, and kind of how that works. Anyway, it's a very good article, and I recommend you all read it, because if you listen to this podcast, you'll enjoy the article. And one thing that Michael Sintra-Nicholas talks about is basically, like, we can't fuck this up. Like, we cannot fuck this up. Our reputation will not survive if we fuck this one up.
Yeah.
And I would like to tell Michael and Stephanie and all the nice people working at NYAV Post, you very much did not fuck up, and I think you probably know that already.
Yeah.
But let's reiterate: you did not fuck up. You did the opposite of that. Good job. I like this. I like this. We'll get more into this when we talk about the actual characters. I think this dub's very good. I think the writing is very solid. I think the direction and casting is very good, especially given as we might talk about a little bit more. They mentioned this article, there were some unexpected limitations on casting, because there's a lot of, like, trying to match what was being done in the Japanese, where there's a lot of recasting of actors who've been in previous Ghibli movies, and one in particular we'll get to right at the end that makes me very happy. But the other, but on top of that, the thing I want to bring up, because this occurred to me on my most recent rewatch, is that I feel like this dub, by complete accident, is a tribute to actors who are good at playing the weird little guys.
Yeah.
Appropriate, given how much Miyazaki loves himself a weird little guy. Not just in the named cast we're going to talk about in a little bit. My evidence for this is if you look at the dub credits, they have a listing for some additional voices for people who got hired to play the parakeets.
Yes!
Which include the three who get listed. You have Mamodo Athi, who I'm less familiar with, but I've looked at his film, and, like, this is a guy who plays weird little guys. I like that. There's Tony Rivoli, who you there will probably know as being the kid from the Grand Budapest Hotel. Absolutely a weird little guy actor. I love that he's in this. And most importantly to me, Dan Stevens, who got big on Downton Abbey and since then has just run as far away from that kind of role as possible and just been in all sorts of weird shit where he does weird voices, is one of those parakeets. I'm pretty sure he plays the pink one who's...
the pink one when Mahito goes into the blacksmith's house. I think that's him.
Who's bassy and got a little bit of a British accent. I don't know, but I feel confident that that's probably Dan Stevens. And it's like, yes, have Dan Stevens play a murderous parakeet who's going to eat you. That is what I want out of this movie.
All we needed is Daniel Radcliffe.
Oh my god!
Much, like he would just slot him in.
Oh, it's funny you mentioned Harry Potter. Foreshadowing.
Also, just to go forward to make clear, when I'm using guys in a gender neutral sense here, even the women, they're also weird little guy actors. It's great. It's a beautiful tribute to a very specific kind of character actor who usually don't get that many of them in one movie, except for one I'm going to bring up during the next section because it feels appropriate.
Oh, boy.
But
no, it's great.
Yeah, this dub rocks. This is a good dub. You did not fuck up, guys.
No,
good job.
You did more than not fuck up. You created a phenomenal product for sure. My minor weird nitpick with the writing and possibly translation aside. Yeah, Andrew and I saw this when it was, there's a small theater that's about, like, maybe 20 minutes from where we live, and it happened to be having a showing of The Boy and the Heron on, like, a Sunday afternoon. So, Andrew and I went to see it for the first time, and I think this was before it won the Academy Award.
Mm-hmm.
It won the Golden Globe by this point, but it was before the Academy Awards, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I fucking fell in love with this. Like, so bad. And especially because the casting was so interesting. You have a vast mix of people and actors who are legends in the voice acting space, one. Or, of course, well-known celebrities, like live-action people. And you can also see, with some of the recasts too, improvements on some of their previous performances in other Ghibli works as well, which I find very fascinating. And then, of course, there's just one performance that is just freaking nuts. But that's foreshadowing. That's later. Are there any other thoughts on the directing and writing before we move on?
I think I'm good.
Okay. So, we're doing this in 3 sections for the characters. We have a huge group for our first section. I think it's 5 in our first section. Then we have 2 and our final 2 pair at the end. So we're going to start with a lot more of the secondary characters of the film. This can include Shoichi Maki, who is Mahito's father. It's not stated if he owns a factory, but that's the vibe I get.
He owns a factory. It says so. He owns a factory. He makes planes. Because of course he makes fucking planes.
Yeah.
Wartime effort. Woohoo! We have Kiriko, who is one of the houseworkers and maids in the estate. Also on a side note, we technically have 2 Kirikos. We have in the present day the old maid working at the estate, but also in the fantasy world, we have the Kiriko who is essentially like a pirate whaler of some sort. I guess it's the best description to give her. And she's a freaking badass in that one. We have Grand Uncle, who is the great-grand uncle of Mahito, and he disappeared years ago into this fantasy world, and he is essentially the creator of this world, and is trying to keep it intact. You have the Parrot King. That's pretty self-explanatory. He's the Parrot King. And then you finally have, for a total of maybe 1 minute, the Noble Pelican. Because the pelicans in this fantasy world, they've kind of, I guess they've forgotten how to fly. They need food, all this fun stuff. It's a whole ass monologue that lasts for a minute. Anyway, the individuals voicing these characters. We'll start with Noble Pelican. Noble Pelican is voiced by Mr. William Dafoe, who has voiced characters such as the Rat in Fantastic Mr. Fox, Gil in Finding Nemo, and this is actually our first repeat Ghibli casting. We have Cobb in Tales from Earthsea. The Parakeet King is voiced by Dave Bautiste, who's played characters such as Drax in the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, Duke Cody in Glass Onion, a Knives Out film, and he has voiced the character of Baka in Little Demon. I think that's the only voiceover role that I could find for him. Grand Uncle is voiced by the one and only, the legend himself, Mr. Mark Hamill, who has been characters such as, of course, Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, and has voiced characters such as Joker in Batman the Animated Series. And we have 2 other Ghibli roles for this one. The Mara Pajit in Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind, and Muska in Castle in the Sky. As Kiriko, playing both the old and the young version, which I didn't realize until I rewatched it, Florence Pugh. Florence Pugh has portrayed characters such as Danny in Midsommar, Amy March in Little Women, Yelena Belova in the Marvel Universe, and she has voiced the character of Goldilocks in Puss in Boots: The Last Witch, as well as, this isn't a voice, this is one of her recent roles, Almut in We Live in Time. That's her most recent role. And as for Shoichi Maki, we have Christian Bale, who has portrayed characters such as Bagheera in Mowgli Legend of the Jungle, Jack Kelly in Newsies, Batman in the Dark Knight trilogy, and, of course, Howl in Howl's Moving Castle. So, I think to get the easiest one out of the way, let's start with William Dafoe as the Noble Pelican, because that's only going to take 5 seconds. Let's be real.
Can we talk for a second about how Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe are reuniting for a film that involves bad things happening to seabirds?
Oh my god!
They have a type, don't they?
I haven't watched The Lighthouse yet. Oh no. Oh, I forgot. I haven't watched The Lighthouse yet. You right.
A lot of crusty sailors in this movie.
Yup.
Yep.
Yup. Foreshadowing.
But I mean,
and they're both birds.
For what lines he has, it's great though. Like, Willem Dafoe is really a comedian of an actor. Of course, comedians.
He can be.
He's a chameleon of an actor.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, really not too much to say, because he gets, like, a monologue.
Yeah.
But it's good to see him.
Yeah, every movie needs their one-scene wonder, and that's Willem's role here. Good for him.
Yep. No, 100%. Like, again, the Noble Pelican is only there for, like, a minute, and he's on his deathbed after basically getting lit the hell up by Lady Himi, for trying to eat all of the wada wada. Because, Jesus Christ. Because we learned that the wada wada, these little, like, phantom things that are trying to, like, go up into the sky, are going to be born as humans. So they are effectively babies. They are babies. And the pelicans are trying to eat them because they need... Unfortunately, they can't survive on the fish that are in the seas in this world. Because I'm guessing, based on the one that Kiriko got, they're huge. How the hell is a pelican supposed to eat that? So, the Noble Pelican kind of has this short little monologue moment just talking about his life and a lot of pride he has being a pelican. And it's a very interesting scene. Yeah, he's a one scene stealing wonder, and it's actually really fun.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Where do we want to go from here?
Batista!
Batista! The Parakeet King. Okay. Alright, the Parakeet King. He really only has a lot to do in the last third of the film. And he's not necessarily the villain. There isn't really a villain.
He's like a temporary antagonist at best. Right.
There's not really a villain in this film. There are antagonistic forces, but...
Yeah, like, and even that he's mostly mad because, like, Mahito, like, violated, like, a taboo, basically.
Right, and he's gonna do whatever he can to, like, protect his people, which are the parakeets. So he also has a sense of pride, but also a bit of naivete. Because, of course, Granduncle isn't gonna tell the Parakeet King that the world is falling apart.
Absolutely not. He's a parakeet. He's stupid. They're all stupid.
Well,
they are the dumbest boys.
I mean, well, compared to all of the other parakeets,
I mean, yes, he
has a little bit of a brain.
He is the smartest of the morons, by no doubt about that.
He inherited the brain cell.
Exactly. He figured out how to hold on to the brain cell, so he's in charge.
He's not sharing it.
Nope.
He's refused to share the brain cell with anybody else. No, Dave Bautista is very interesting because the only other time I have seen or heard him in anything is, of course, Guardians of the Galaxy, because that's, of course. And obviously it's vastly different compared to what he did with Drax in Guardians. I need to watch him in Glass Onion, though.
Oh, yeah.
Because I heard Glass Onion, I've heard, is really, really good. I've seen Knives Out, but I haven't seen Glass Onion yet. So that'd be interesting to watch. No, Dave Bautista has this sense of pride and honor, but also a mix of naivete to the situation around him, and that ends up being, like, his downfall when he sneaks it back in following Mahito the Heron and Lady Hime, and he basically screws with the building blocks that Granduncle is trying to, like, get Mahito to use. And then he just completely destroys the world, essentially.
Whoops.
Nice job breaking it, guys. Anyway, welcome to the Weird Little Guy Club, Dave Bautista.
We're proud to have you.
Welcome to Studio Ghibli, Dave Bautista. We hope you come back for more little weird guys.
I hope Dave Bautista does more voiceover roles and plays more weird little guys, because I know he has a lot of ambitions to do, like, romantic comedies and...
Yeah. He wants to do all the roles that guys who used to be wrestlers usually don't get cast as, because the assumption is that you used to be a wrestler. What are you going to bring to the table?
Right.
I mean, John Cena did kind of the same thing as well with his trajectory.
But it's also like the roles that former wrestlers don't typically get are also the weird little guys.
Yes.
Yeah. The weird little guys, or in Drax's case, the weird big guy.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
The weird big guy. Like, Dave Bautista is good at playing some weird characters. Like, I get that vibe, and I really would love to see him do more voiceover work, because I think he'd be able to, like, really, like, flex his chops a bit more. I think that'd be such a fun direction for him to take, honestly.
Yeah.
I would hope that doing stuff like this ends up opening that as an app, which I think that fits in very well with his ambitions. Like, he is...
No, 100%.
The thing that springs to mind for this is he has a small role in Blade Runner 2048. He's just in the very, very beginning, where he's playing this robot that Ryan Gosling has to hunt down. And his actual performance is very quiet, but there's that inherent contrast to the fact that, like, it's a very subdued performance, but he still looks like Dave Bautista. Like, he even puts on these little glasses that look almost comical on his face because they're so small compared to the rest of them.
Yeah.
But, like, that was the first time I saw him. I was like, okay, you're like an actual actor. You're taking this seriously. You want to be more than just the big guy who hits people. I respect that, and I think doing stuff like this feels very in line with that.
No, it's very interesting. Some of the trajectories of the, like, retired wrestlers, like John Cena, like Dave Bautista. Like, here's a prime example, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Like, he's a fantastic example of this. Like, it's just so interesting, especially with I guess you can kind of put Dave Bautista and John Cena in, like, a newer generation of retired wrestlers that try to become actors. Because it's not an easy thing to transition into as a wrestler. Like you guys were saying, like, you're a wrestler, why the hell are you doing this? But no, I think he does really well. He's been doing very well for himself with this transition into the world of acting, and I really hope that in terms of voiceover work, this really opens some doors for him, for sure. Mm-hmm. Do we want to move on to Granduncle?
Sure.
Because what is there? There's nothing bad to ever say, ever, about Mark Hamill.
He comes in, he does his job, he pops out. Like,
yeah.
He knows what he's got to do.
The man is a professional. I think Mark Hamill is the only member of the cast, at least in terms of, like, major named characters, that has the most extensive voice acting experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because some of the other people here, the only other exception might actually be Lady Hime, but we'll get to her in a minute. Mm-hmm. But in terms of, like, overall, like, experience, Mark Hamill definitely has a lot already, and this is the third Ghibli property that he's done. Granted, it's been years since he did a Ghibli dub, to be fair, but for him, it just seemed like it was like riding a bike. Like, you can never forget how to ride a bike once you're, like, in the booth and you're experiencing it all over again. Because Willem Dafoe and Christian Bale at least have the added benefit of having already experienced the dubbing process. While for all three of them, it's been years since they did it, like, it's still at least, all three of them are at least able to pick it back up relatively quickly, it seems like. And Mark Hamill, it's Mark freaking Hamill, for God's sake. Yeah. Like, what is there to really say? Like, with Grand Uncle, I sense, like, this, it's more quiet. It's much more quiet. The tone of voice is, what's the fucking character in Avatar that he plays?
Fire Lord Ozan?
Yep.
Thank you. Fire Lord Ozan. That's the tone that's the vocal tone that you get. But it's much more quiet and tired because this is an old man. Mm. I think it's a very, very nice touch, especially with the moments we have with Grand Uncle, where he's like, I'm done. I need to pass this on to someone else in my bloodline. I want to make sure the world is okay, but I can't keep doing this. And he just wants to retire and die. That's all he wants. Here's a joke we haven't pulled in a hot minute. Because of the end of the movie. He was only 1 day from retirement too. That's a joke we haven't pulled in a hot minute. Hooray. But no, I mean, what else is there to say about Mark Hamill's Grand Uncle, really? Yeah.
It's a good, solid performance from a professional actor who knows what he's doing.
Yeah, the main thing that stuck out, and this is mostly a weird me thing, is I always forget how much his voice is kind of, like, deepened and gotten scratchier as he's gotten older. Like, in my brain, he still sounds kind of like, you know, the way he did in the 90s, and I always forget that the voice he uses in regular show is probably closer to just how he actually sounds these days. Mm-hmm. Which I think works here. He sounds like the oldest man who's ever lived. Yeah. Like, he sounds so gruff and tired. Well, like, in a good way. Like, I think that really lends itself to the performance. Like, he does, I mean, I don't know what a bad Mark Hamill performance sounds or looks like in the first place, but, like, yeah, he's great here.
Yeah, because his first voiceover role was the Joker, I think, wasn't it?
I think, no. I want to say he done some stuff beforehand, but that was the really,
but that was his big break into the voiceover world.
Yeah, I think that was the first really, really high-profile thing that he did.
So, but I think fact,
oh, do tell.
If I recall correctly, he got the role in Wizards around the same time he was cast in Star Wars, if not a little bit.
I forgot that he was in fucking Wizards. Jesus Christ.
What a fucking trip of a movie.
Oh, God.
See, that's how you know he has real taste. He's going out there getting cast in Ralph Bakshi movies before it was cool. Not that it was ever cool, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm looking back at his credits right now. It looks like it's not going to be entirely accurate because these shows are long-running shows. He did some voices in some Scooby-Doo stuff, but that's not exactly specific as to when. Yeah, Wizards. I see Wizards up here from 1977. Oh, the dubs for Nausicaa and Castle in the Sky would have been later.
No, they're from like the 2000s. Yeah, they were not.
Yeah, but say I see Nausicaa and Castle in the Sky. I'm like 84 and 86. I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense because these are both. It's under the Disney dubs, and that would have been the 2000s.
He would not have been in the Wind Warriors.
If only.
Legend of Prince Valiant was in 92.
Jesus Christ.
Wild West COW Boys of Moo Mesa.
Oh my god.
For an episode in 93.
Oh boy.
Cowboys of Moo Mesa. Ugh.
Okay, and then we start getting Batman. There's Bonkers from 94. Okay, so it was... Alright, so Batman the Animated Series was started in 1992. He did a stint on Garfield and Friends in 94. You have SWAT Cats. There's a few. Oh, he's fucking Freakazoid. I forgot. He's Freakazoid. He was in Ren and Stimpy. Yeah, definitely Batman is really what set him off in the realm of voiceover work, and he's just been there pretty much ever since, and good for him, honestly. Any other thoughts on Grand Uncle, or do we want to move on to the next person?
I'm ready to move on.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask this question. Do we want to talk about Shoichi or Kiriko now?
I have less to say about Shoichi, other than he has the best delivery in the movie. But I have less to say about him in general.
Okay, why don't we talk about Shoichi? Because I feel like there's a lot more to Kiriko, and I feel like she needs to be left for last because of that.
Okay.
Alright, so Christian Bale is Shoichi. The voice that Christian Bale used for Shoichi reminds me of some, like, City Slicker. If that makes sense.
He sounds like a 50s dad.
Yeah!
Which feels like the right voice to use for this character, but it's just funny hearing Christian Bale do it.
So,
no, yeah,
I find this performance hilarious for a very specific reason.
Okay.
Do tell.
Like,
what is it?
In the Boy and the Heron, a bit of his British accent slips out.
Yep.
Yep.
And considering for Howl's Moving Castle, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The movie where he should have been allowed to let his British accent out.
Should have been Howl, yeah.
He doesn't.
I know.
And I'm pretty sure that was more a... This was around the time the Christopher Nolan Batman movies were coming out, and they probably didn't want him to use that because his more Americanized accent is what people are more accustomed to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I just find it funny that now that we're out of that phase, he's finally allowed to use it again, and it's just funny to me.
See, I just got straight City Slicker. You have like that bit of New Yorker accent in there, and I'm like, where did this come from? Why do I love it?
Yeah, between this and Gore the God Butcher in the latest Thor movie.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that yet. He's having fun.
Actually, which in that case, hey, Christian Bale, welcome to the Weird Little Guy Club.
Oh, Christian Bale's been part of the Weird Little Guy Club for a long time. It's just usually the guys he plays are also... I'm just saying, Patrick Bateman qualifies as a weird little guy. He's just a weird little guy that's gonna fucking kill you, that's all.
I guess.
Yeah.
Anyone who can talk at that length about how good the album Sports by Huey Lewis and the News is qualifies as a weird little guy.
I love it. No, I have a feeling like Christian Bale is at the point in his career where he's just having fun with stuff, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Between this and Gore the God Butcher, he's just here for like having a good freaking time, especially because like I think in like the 2000s, a good chunk of his roles, the 2000s was like a huge block of time with the Batman trilogy, and so he was more. By that point, he was really cemented as more of like the serious dramatic actor. But now you have him doing just whatever he freaking wants at this point, and we get to benefit from that.
He's in the fuck it, I got nothing to prove stage.
Yeah, that's really where he's at, and it's great because we get fun little gems like this. You tell me who did this to my boy Mahito. Oh my god, I almost pulled out the Joey Wheeler. No, like, Shoichi is... I kind of find Shoichi to be more of a comedic character rather than a dramatic one.
Yes.
Because like, I feel like that's more of the intention with Shoichi, because he's not really involved in a lot of, the fantasy world elements, but he does get shit on by parakeets.
Yep.
And he's just like again, the city slicker accent, where he's just like, you tell me who, Mahito, you need to tell me who did this to you. I'm gonna go talk to the school. Like, it's very interesting how that goes. I will say, though, in terms of the technicality part of it, of the performance with this being an English dub, I do think it improved quite a bit from when he did Howl.
Yeah.
I believe that. I think he's had.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had more experience, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it definitely helps that that the actual dub was being, on the technical side, being worked on by people who work typically on anime dubs.
100%.
And dubs in general.
That's already a benefit. That's already a benefit right there, which helps Christian, I think, a lot in terms of, one, being able to get back on that bike, because it has been at least, 10-15 years since Howl came out, almost, and then just, like, helping him get on that bike, but also, like, getting him through and also improving in the technical pieces of an English dub.
Yep.
So, I vastly think that Shoichi, as silly as a character as he can be, is very much improved compared to his portrayal of Howl in Howl's Moving Castle.
Yep.
I would say out of, like, the 3, like, redos, he would be, like, most improved. Between him, Mark Hamill, and Willem Dafoe. Like, he's probably the most improved when it comes to English dubbing.
Yeah, I can see
because Mark Hamill, it's Mark Hamill, duh. And William Dafoe, while this is probably, as far as I can tell, the second English dub that he's ever done, William Dafoe has also done a lot more animation and voiceover work compared to Christian. So William Dafoe already has that leg up in that process. So for Christian Bale, I think it's, like, very, very much improved compared to how he portrayed Howl, personally.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on Mr. Christian Bale?
The 2 best seconds of this dub is Mahito turned into a little budgie.
Mahito! He turned into a parakeet! He turned into a little budgie!
Which I'm half convinced was a slight improvisation on Christian Bale's part, just because budgies, in my mind at least, is a very specifically, that's what British people call parakeets. So I feel like he might have whipped that one out himself. I'm not sure, though.
Anyways, if he did, that's brilliant.
No, that's just
it.
The way he says it is so comically pathetic. Like, he doesn't know what to do with this information. It is great.
It's so good. And again, that's why I think Shoichi is definitely more of a comedic character in this film.
Also, it features my favorite aspect of this movie, which is just the bird shit constantly. There's so much bird shit in this movie. It's wonderful.
It happened to Shoichi, and then it happened to Mahito and Natsuko.
Like, the moment I knew this movie had the juice is the first time the Heron harasses Mahito and he leaves, and when Mahito goes over, there's just bird shit all over the fucking windowsill. It's, like, so gross. It's like, yes.
Yep, this clicks.
Yeah, Miyazaki's having fun. That's for sure. Oh, man. Anything else for Shoichi, or do we want to move to Kiriko?
I think we can go to Kiriko.
Okay, Florence Pugh is Kiriko. I think this is aside from the obvious one that we'll get to later, this is the one that most impressed me, I think, personally.
So as I said, this is a fine representation of people in the Weird Little Guys Club, and I will note, Florence Pugh, she is in the greatest concentration of weird little guy actors and actresses in the world, which is the movie Oppenheimer. She plays Jean Tatlock, that lady who Oppenheimer's having an affair with that ends badly.
Oh,
and it's like, yes. And like,
I haven't watched Oppenheimer, so I'll take your word for it.
She's great. I've seen her in roughly 3 movies, and she's been 4 now, and she's been great in all of them. But like, yes. Like, she is. I like her so much here. I love that here in his old age, Miyazaki was like, you know what my movie needs? A cool pirate lady.
Yes!
That's what this movie needs to really hold itself together, a cool pirate lady. And I feel like Florence really just got like, yeah, no, like, you're a tough broad.
She's badass. This is the part that's the most impressive to me. When I first watched the movie, I didn't put two and two together. On my rewatch, though, I was like, crap! She's voicing both Pirate Lady Kiriko and the Old Lady Kiriko.
Yep.
The old lady voice is, like, almost unrecognizable. I'm like, what?
It's astonishing. Like, I think I learned that fact and then forgot about it because, like, what? What do you mean?
It's like, what do you mean this is also Florence Pugh? What the hell, guys? No, I think that's the part I think that's the part that's the most impressive to me, is that she was able to, like, really flex her range on a project like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of the magic, that's the benefit and kind of the magic of celebrities getting the chance to do voiceover work. Mm-hmm. Is moments like this, where they really get to, like, flex their chops a little bit more and test their own limits and their range. I definitely loved her on both sides. Pirate Lady Kiriko is a badass, for sure. But the Old Lady Kiriko, you still have some of her, like, sass to her that the younger one has. She's like, hey kid, you want an actual bow and arrow? I'll get it for you if you give me some smokes. The heck you gave him to the groundskeeper? What the hell, man? Like, she has some sass to her. And among all the older maids and the older housekeepers, she is the one that seems to still have a lot more, like, high spirits to her compared to the other ones, which makes her stand out, which is a good thing. Considering she kind of gets, weirdly enough, dragged into the whole situation. No, I was probably, like, so impressed with Florence Pugh. She's among my favorites. Probably my second favorite performance in the movie, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from just, as you point out, the trick that she's playing both versions of the character, which seems ridiculous. I don't know, she's just cool. Like, she's the character in this movie I would most want to watch another movie about, basically.
Yeah.
Oh,
like, I would absolutely watch a movie about Kiriko living in this weird world and fishing giant fish and just getting by in life. That'd be great.
And honestly, the things I could say about this, you guys have already said, so I'm good.
Alright. If that's... Okay. Are there any other general thoughts on all of the characters that we've talked about so far? Before we move on to our next set. So that would be Shoichi Kiriko, Grand Uncle, Parakeet King, and the Noble Pelican. Anything else in general, or do we just...
It's a nice collection of weird little guys.
Yep. love these weird little guys.
We love the weird little guys. We want more of the weird little guys.
Also, sidebar, I looked it up. It was an article published in IndieWire, not Variety. My mistake.
Got it. That makes more sense.
Yes.
That makes more sense. All right. How about we move on to our next set of characters? These two, they are definitely much more integral to the story, the overarching story. We have Natsuko, Mahito's new stepmom, who also happens to be the sister of Mahito's dead mother. It's funny how that works. She kind of kicks off a lot of the story elements with the fantasy world, because Mahito's trying to get, like, dragged into the fantasy world because of the Great Heron, but eventually he does go to that world because Natsuko leaves to go to that world. For whatever reason, I don't think it's explicitly stated, but it seems like the implication is, it is because she feels like Mahito hates her, is the vibe I get. Because, I mean, Mahito's trying to adjust to having a dead mother, and then all of a sudden getting a new mom and a little brother or sister on the way. But that's Natsuko. And then Lady Hime. Lady Hime is in the fantasy world. She's a young, very spirited girl with powers and is trying to help protect this world. We do find out, though, that this is actually the younger version of Mahito's mother, Hisako. Because at one point when she was younger, she was stuck there for a year, came back, but with no memory of anything. Similar to Kiriko. I believe I remember right, both Hisako and Kiriko were in the world at the same time. Because they do leave at the same time. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of who voices these characters, as Lady Hime, we have Karen Fukuhara, who has portrayed characters such as Katana in the Suicide Squad film, and has voiced characters such as F in Star Wars Visions, and Haru in Pokemon Concierge. Karen Fukuhara is probably the only other person who has some relative experience in the dubbing sphere that is outside of Ghibli. Mm-hmm. Natsuko is voiced by Gemma Chan, who has portrayed characters such as Cersei in Eternals, Namari in Raya and the Last Dragon, and she has voiced the character of Ares in the video game Diablo 4. So, we have a voice actor who's not only in the voice acting sphere, but also in the video game sphere. So that's also an interesting combination there. So, how do we feel about both Gemma Chan and Karen Fukuhara's performances?
I think they were good for what they needed to be. Mm-hmm. I would say they didn't leave too much of an impression on me, but that may also just be because of the way the characters were, written.
Okay.
I guess in terms of, Lady Hime and the whole aspect of reincarnation thing that goes on. Really, I guess her role in the film is basically the damsel in distress that Mahito basically has to rescue. Gemma does an actually pretty good job with Natsuko too. She can play a real asshole.
She does have that moment in the delivery room, yeah.
Where she's trying to kick Mahito out, which is really more of a move to protect him than to, actually berate him for
being there, yeah.
Her, but yeah.
And it actually ends up being the first time Mahito calls her mother as well.
Yep.
Instead of as Natsuko or ma'am or anything like that. It ends up being the actual first time he calls her mother. Which becomes a very, very important and poignant moment, I think, for Mahito's character as well.
Yeah. I agree. I think they both give very strong performances. I like what Gemma brought to Natsuko, who she has a fair amount to do, but not necessarily in terms of voice work. But I liked her performance. I like how she does capture this kind of I like the little bits with her at the beginning where she is trying to make Mahito feel welcome. She clearly understands that this is a weird thing for him to go through too, and she's trying to make him feel comfortable and this is a place for him and that kind of thing. And also the contrast of that of her when they're in the fantasy world and she has a slightly better understanding of what's going on than he does, and has the freak out where it's you shouldn't be here. More in terms of your own safety than anything else. Please go.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was a good, strong performance. I have a little more to say about Karen, just because I think this is where you can see, Karen has been the lead role in a couple of animated series at this point, and I think you could definitely, this definitely had much more of it was a good performance that very much had the quality of we have hired a pro to do the thing that they're good at.
Yeah.
Which is fun because if you read that IndieWire article, they actually mentioned they had a little bit of trouble recording her lines because, as you might guess from her name, she's Japanese descent, and Japanese was her first language, and apparently she kept running into the problem that she would sometimes try and imitate the Japanese performance a little too much, but in English, and it came out weird. Because that is Japanese is her first language, so it took a while to kind of figure out what direction to give her to let her kind of go in a different direction, do her own thing a little bit, which I think I would not know that based on the performance she gives here. She sounds really natural and authentic. She is very much that quality that you, I think, learn to expect in kind of like, the spunky female lead in a Miyazaki movie.
Yeah.
Like she sounds wonderful here. I would not gather that like this like performance was like a struggle to get to at all. This sounds this sounds really good to me.
Yeah, because I'm not familiar with the dubbing process in Japan, but I would imagine the dubbing process there is you try to match, instead of like making the performance your own, you try and match the performance of the live action. Is that's I'm not familiar.
No, I think the issue was more just she'd seen the movie previously, and like that's her native tongue already, so it's kind of like that's what she kind of fell into trying to capture, and it wasn't quite working. And the language difference means it did. I'm paraphrasing an article I haven't read in like over 6 months, so I might be getting something a little wrong, but that was kind of the gist of it.
It's basically the thing that English dub actors try to avoid with their actors, making sure that they're unfamiliar with the source material so that they keep going, doing their own thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit of that. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, this is a really good performance. Like this is both of these feel very much in that category of like they're not necessarily flashy, but they are the correct performances for what the role requires.
Yeah, I feel that. These for both Gemma and Karen, I think they did well with what they had, especially for Natsuko, especially, I think, as a plot device for the film. I think Gemma-chan does very, very well with the role. Especially with Gemma as Natsuko having to, again, like you guys were saying, being this welcoming figure, trying to step into the role of being a mother while trying to help Mahito navigate his grief, because Natsuko also lost her sister, just like Mahito lost his mom, right? So they're both trying to navigate the grief together, though Natsuko, I think, has put herself back together after that. But it's very interesting for her trying to step into the mother role and then also trying to not necessarily fight. No, I think Gemma did a really, really good job for what Natsuko is as a character, both as a plot device and also as this chance for Mahito to move on in his life. And then Karen, I never would have guessed that she had difficulties trying to make the role of Lady Hime as her own until you said something. I never would have guessed that. But a lot of it makes a lot of sense how you can kind of see like some of the struggle with that. But what she ended up going with Lady Hime, I think, was so fun. It was spunky, it was youthful. It was also a rather supportive figure in the story for Mahito as well, because eventually Lady Hime realizes, I am gonna be your mom, like, and it kind of it helps. Lady Hime helps give a little bit of a sense of closure to Mahito, and Mahito is now able to move on and step forward into the future with his new mom, Natsuko. But I think Karen and Gemma did really, really well with these performances, with everything that is considered for these roles here. Are there any other thoughts, or do we want to move on to our final pair?
I think I'm ready to move on.
Yeah, me too.
Oh boy.
Rubs hands together with glee.
My time has come, boys and girls. Okay, we are going to talk about effectively our two leads. The Gray Heron, I guess, kind of is a lead, but also is a secondary character, but I'm calling him a lead in this case for now. We have Mahito Maki, our lead hero of the story. The boy suffering through the loss of his mother, the boy trying to adjust to a new life with his stepmom, and every other thing in between. And then you have the frickin' instigator of everything, the Gray Heron, He's a weird little guy who gets Mahito to go to this fantasy world by playing tricks on him, saying that, hey, I know where your mother is, here's your mom. No, that's actually not your mom. And then he actually gets forced by Grand Uncle to take Mahito to find Natsuko. The individuals voicing these characters. Let's start with Mahito. Mahito is voiced by Luca Padovin, who has portrayed characters such as Jet in Super Wings, Tucker Bunch in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and Rose in Code Geass Rose of Recapture. So he actually got the chance to do another recent dub work with, and I believe NYAV posted the dub for Rose of Recapture as well. So he got to work with NYAV host again, so that's pretty cool. This is the reason why I'm here. The Gray Heron. The Gray Heron is portrayed by one Mr. Robert Pattinson, who has, first of all, never done any voiceover work from what I could tell in his life, but has portrayed very well-known characters, including Cedric Diggory in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Edward Cullen in the Twilight franchise, but he's also Batman in the new Batman films, but he's also done characters such as, ironically enough, and I love that you brought the Lighthouse into this, Patrick, earlier, Thomas Howard in the Lighthouse, and for something that is on the way in the future, Mickey Barnes in Mickey 17, which that looks freaking hilarious to me.
Another movie where Robert Pattinson does a weird voice.
Yes. Yes. Alright, so where do we want to start?
I mean...
Should we give Luca his flowers first?
Yes.
Before we get to the main
Yes, let's give Luca his flowers.
It's a really solid performance from Luca.
Yeah.
You can sense the grief within Mahito's character.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like Luca grows with the character as the progression of the film moves along.
Uh-huh.
And it's good. Like, it's that unquantifiable good, where it's just like, yeah, I am... Yeah. You'll have to forgive me. I literally woke up about a half an hour before we started recording.
You're good, don't worry.
And his determination in sort of the fantasy world to rescue his mother, and then, as it turns out, his new stepmother.
Mm-hmm.
I just like it. I'm struggling to find words, but it's just one of those performances that really doesn't need too much into it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the highest praise I can give it is that it is a good performance. And also, like, he's by far the youngest person in this cast.
Right.
Yeah.
But he absolutely, like, he holds his own against a lot of actors who are much more experienced than him. And it does a good job, which, like, that is nothing to sneeze at. Being a child actor is hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, that by itself kind of feels like a testament to his performance.
Yeah, he's,
especially given who he has to act against for at least 50% of the movie.
Right. As a side note, he's, I'm looking at his IMDb right now. Luca is actually born in 2003, so he's at least in his early 20s now.
You know what I mean.
I know what you mean, but I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Younger actor who looks to be primarily in the voice acting scene, actually holding his own against, like, veteran screen actors. Like, that's impressive.
Oh, yeah.
No, 100%. I feel like he definitely, like, he was able to carry the film, like, the whole way through. It was, I will say, it was a little bit awkward at the start of the film, but he definitely was able to, like, adjust pretty freaking quickly, and was able to, like, shift and grow with the character along the way. So I think he was phenomenal as the lead in this, because you get to effectively, through him, go through kind of the stages of grief with his mom. Yeah, that's the whole thing with the film, is this boy going through the 5 stages of grief. With him finally allowing himself to love Natsuko as his new mom, being acceptance, the final stage of the 5 stages. So being able to see Luca progress throughout the course of the film, because he gets the sadness and the dramatic tones down. He gets the very, very heartfelt determination down. He gets some of the snarky moments down, especially with his interactions with Robert Pattinson as the Grey Heron. It's definitely a fun and interesting mix and a balance that Luca gets to portray, and I enjoyed it a lot. Did you have anything to say about Luca?
I mean, I think I said my piece. Like, he sounds good. He sounds like he sounds like an equal to everyone else here, this is a pretty stacked cast. That's nothing to sneeze at. Yeah, I hope he continues to be in high profile stuff. Like, he sounds like a talented guy. Like, he's good.
Yeah, I mean, he also, cause since he did do Rose of Recapture this year. Mm-hmm. I kind of hope he gets pulled in for more NYAV post projects in the future, honestly.
Or sort of become like another Jonathan Leon where he just shows up.
Yeah. I'd be down with that, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be down with that. So, okay. Let's talk about the reason why I'm at least here. Robert Pattinson is the Grey Heron.
What a scrumply goblin.
The Grey Heron is a freaking hobgoblin in the best way. I love it.
Can I tell a little story about...
Go ahead.
So, in that IndieWire article,
yes.
they talk a little bit about casting. And one of the people they interview in there is the guy who's the president of G-Kids. And apparently at some point they did a showing for all this, and like he's watching this, and he looks at the Grey Heron, and it's like Danny DeVito. There we go. Don't need to think about that casting at all. Until he started talking to Ghibli, and he's like, no, you see, in the Japanese, he's played by this guy who's like a hot young idol type. Can you cast somebody like that in that role?
Interesting.
And they're like, oh, what the fuck? How the fuck are we gonna do this? And apparently it sounds like they like heard through the grapevine that like Pattinson just came up as an option, and I think the kind of the grapevine, this might be the kind of thing he's interested in. So they like reached out to him and said like, would you be interested in doing this? Because he's a young idol type, but also Robert Pattinson's done a lot of weird shit over the years.
Yeah.
So he said yes. And there's this wonderful moment where Michael Sinterniklaas, who, Pattinson hasn't done any... I'm sure he's done maybe, like, some ADR or, like... I mean, there's, like, a commercial he's done voiceover work, but he hasn't done, like, VO as we talk about it. So he's like, all right, I'm probably going to have to coach him or something. And Robert Pattinson comes in, and he goes over, and he says, like, I've been working on a voice. And he pulls out his iPhone and opens up the voice memo app and plays them what is basically the voice he's using in this movie.
Oh my god.
Like, he
love it!
He developed that just before he even came in.
I love that, because Robert Pattinson is very much a character method actor.
Yeah. And so, like, that just feels...
I love that.
That feels like a sign of how on point the casting is that he didn't... Like, it's not just that he had a good role, he was like, no, he was, like, thinking about how to make this good before he was even in the booth. Like...
Yep.
Yeah. I love that. That's so good. He gets to be a weird little guy.
Absolutely. He gets to live his dream of being in stuff that not no one wants to watch, but just like, how far away can I get from cheesy romantic lead?
Listen, after Twilight, he was like, I'm going so far in the deep end and away from this shit. And it's worked out for him amazingly.
I think about the fact that the same year the last Twilight movie came out, he was in a David Cronenberg movie, which it's not one of Cronenberg's grosser movies, but the fact that he's working with a guy like David Cronenberg is already a sign that, like, okay, you really want to get away from Hollywood. That's what that tells me. You want to do other stuff.
Yeah,
good for you.
Or at least from being the heartthrob.
Yeah.
Bare minimum, he was trying to get away from being the heartthrob. That's why he ended up doing, like, so many different indie films.
Mm-hmm.
He still did do some commercial stuff, but...
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about a lot of those young British teen idol actors becoming adults and then deciding, you know what? I want to be the weirdest motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Written for the screen.
Oh, 100%.
Because, I mean, Robert Pattinson, Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah, Daniel Radcliffe's another one who went off to, like, the other side of the spectrum.
I mean, Daniel Radcliffe went from Harry Potter to basically playing a farting zombie.
Yeah.
A guy with guns.
That was was that Swiss Army Man?
Yes.
Is that the one?
That's the one.
Yes.
And then Guns Akimbo, where he has guns bolted to his hands. And then Weird Al Yankovic.
Bro, you want to talk about weird random shit that Daniel Radcliffe did? He had his junk shown on a Broadway stage 8 shows a week.
Yeah.
He was the lead in Equus. And now he's a Tony-winning actor because he just did Merrily We Roll Along. So, like, both Daniel and Robert are, like, getting away from, like, the mainstream stuff that they had done over the years. And they have found success in that.
Mm-hmm.
When teen actors are given the freedom to reinvent themselves,
yeah,
good shit
They will.
typically happens.
Yeah. And in Robert Pattinson's case, a lot of good shit has been happening for him.
And I mean, now Robert Pattinson is, in about a month, going to be launching a film with an Academy Award-winning director. A Best Picture Academy Award-winning director.
I am so excited for Mickey 17. You have no idea.
Oh wait, actually, I have
want
great.
to see Mickey 17.
Actually, I have good news. That is technically not true because it got bumped up. It got bumped back to an April release because I'm assuming Warner was like,
okay,
all right, maybe we shouldn't dump this in January.
Oh, good. They
Okay.
moved it out of fuck you, it's January.
Okay, good. So they're trying to, like, actually make it into a solid release.
I have to assume they saw the reaction to the trailer and was like, no, wait, this does have legs. Let's not be stupid. We do that enough already. Let's move it to spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Robert Pattinson being the new Batman, like, I think that alone has definitely kind of helped elevate it a tiny bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's my feel. But also you add in, like Patrick was saying, an Academy Award-winning director...
Like, not just
into
Academy
the mix.
Award-winning director. Like, the guy won the first Best Picture Oscar for a subtitled film.
Right. So, like, that says a lot. So, it's gonna, like, I'm glad they pushed the release on that, actually. Anyway, we're getting off track. Robert Pattinson is fucking phenomenal. This is the reason why I'm here. Because I am used to him as Cedric Diggory and, of course, Edward frickin' Cullen. Alright? For me to go into this the first time and hear the, like, aside from hearing the trailers, obviously, but to see him go about this Grey Heron for a span of 2+ hours, I'm like, this man can do anything. Give him more things. Like, and he's like almost 40, I think. He was born in 86. So he's closing in on 40 too. So he's definitely at the I love Robert Pattinson. I love what he's done with his career outside of, like, the Twilight franchise. But the Grey Heron is a goblin. It's a hobgoblin amalgamation of snark and sass. And it's just freaking brilliant. That's my favorite performance.
The best part about all this is Robert Pattinson pulls off the acting side of it while at the same time doing a voice that sounds like he's gargling straight malt whiskey with river rocks.
Yeah. he's still able to, like, keep up the actual acting portion of the role.
It's a performance where I forget he's doing a voice sometimes, because it doesn't sound like he's doing a voice. It just sounds like they found an actor who sounds like that anyways.
It just sounds like it's just him. Yeah. No, it's... Oh, God, it's so interesting. Like, he definitely was able to, like, do, like, a complete transformation in his voice to pull this off. And the fact that he was so excited that he comes in with a voice note. Like, I've been working on a voice. Tell me what you think.
He clearly saw this as an opportunity to do a fun, weird thing he had not tried before. And he was going to put all his energy. This is what I love about Robert Pattinson. He absolutely could have sat on his laurels and done, like, crappy romance movies for the rest of his career, made perfectly good money, had a fan base. Whatever. Like, he absolutely could have done that, and his response to not being attached to his response to being in a major franchise was basically, I want to be weird and hungry and ambitious, because I feel like that was denied to me for quite a while, and I want to do that instead. And that's why he's doing, like, this and The Lighthouse and working with David Cronenberg, and he's going to be in this movie where he plays a guy who just gets killed over and over again. It's like, this is great. Wonderful.
Now, that being said, I do have one gripe.
Okay.
And it is not actually with the performance of the Grey Heron itself. And it's not with Robert Pattinson himself.
Okay.
It is basically the way G-Kids marketed the film after they released that first dub trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Where it basically became all about Robert Pattinson and the performance as a Grey Heron, instead of the film itself, which was... I'll have some final thoughts about the actual film, but it's kind of the whole corpse husband situation. Maybe not quite as bad, because a lot of the cast here is, like, A-list to begin with, but you have folks like Luca leading the film, and G-Kids decided to lean on a performance that maybe has 15-20 minutes worth of dialogue. But that's... I mean, it's a nitpick, but that's really just my one thing that annoyed me about this whole thing.
I mean, here's the issue, though. Luca is not... Here's the issue from a marketing standpoint, right? To get people to see a English dub of a Japanese film, how are you going to market that to a wide audience? And usually the easiest way to do that is with celebrity.
Oh yeah, no, I understand that completely.
No, I get the gripe that you have, but like with a standard marketing campaign like this for a kind of film, it just seems like the norm. It's unfortunate that they went that route, because, I mean, again, Luca's phenomenal, and they didn't necessarily lean into Robert Pattinson's crazy-ass performance either. They just were like, oh, this is just Robert Pattinson, he's here. But you don't necessarily know, without looking it up, that he's the Grey Heron, and they don't lean into that as much. And with the Tribe 9 corpse husband situation, I didn't feel like the whole celebrity portion of it was leaned into it too hard, in my opinion. It was a thing that happened, yes, and they could have had the option of leaning into it a bit harder, but at least in terms of what Sound Cadence and what Lenti did, I feel like they leaned into that enough to at least get it to the audience that they were intending it for. They didn't go super hard, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, with the case of Tribe 9, it wasn't necessarily Lenti and Sound Cadence, it was more the platform that hosted the show.
Right, they're the ones who kind of overdid it. They're the ones who, I will agree with that they're the ones who did overdo it.
And they did rightfully get called out, and they did rightfully change after they were called out.
Right. I that part I can agree with. But, I mean, because one of the things I loved during the whole Tribe 9 thing was just, like, Lenti was just being so proud of, like, the cast, and including Corpse, who had never done a voiceover role in his life. And it was just, like, them recounting his experience of the whole course of it. That part I thought was pretty cool to find out and was unique and kind of helped push the show a little bit more in a different way. Anyway, we're getting off track. Tangents. Any other thoughts on Robert Pattinson as the Grey Heron?
Do more voice acting, Robert. You're good at it.
Yes.
Please! Can you? Like, because this was a surprise in and of itself. And I feel like Robert Pattinson could, if he wanted to, progress his career in a way that Mark Hamill did into the voice acting sphere.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, Mark Hamill is synonymous now with a lot of voiceover work. And Mark Hamill has always been able to, like, be this kind of chameleon voice actor as well in some certain extent. I think Robert Pattinson has potentially laid down the groundwork to do that himself. And I really hope he takes full advantage of that.
And let's be real. There is an entire universe of scrunkly chaos goblins in the realm of animation.
Oh, there's there. Yep. I would love that. And not just in, like, anime, but, like, in Western animation, too.
Yeah.
I feel like if Robert Pattinson really wanted to, like, lean more into that, he can. And I think he should. Maybe not, like, a constant thing, like Mark Hamill has made himself known to do now, but maybe, like, every so often, if there's, like, a slow period, maybe pick up, like, an animated film or a short animated series or something. I feel like that'd be something so fun that he could, like, really sink his teeth into, along with a lot of the indie projects that he's been doing.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on Robert Pattinson? Or any other thoughts on Luca at this point, too?
They did good. Like, they're the kind of the people who end up having to carry this movie, and they did a fantastic job.
Yeah. The interactions between the two of them are just so fun, and they're sassy.
I love the bit where, like, Mahito has made the little plug for the heron's beak. And it seems to be working, and the heron starts giving this speech about how he's basically going to ditch him, and then just kind of trails off halfway through, and it's like, what's wrong? It's like, the plug, like, sticks down a little bit into my mouth, and it's really distracting. It just cuts to him, like, whittling it down further so it's not bothering
and just
him.
try to fix it.
And then at this point, any gripes the heron has about following this kid around just go away. It's like, all right, fine, I owe you. Okay.
It was good. I love that little bit. That moment was great. I loved it. All right, so if we don't have any other thoughts, why don't we head into final thoughts about The Boy and the Heron, the film in general, our thoughts on the English dub in general, just laying it all out there. Amon, do you want to go first?
How do I think I agree that this is... I don't know. I think whether or not you think this is Miyazaki's magnum opus probably has a lot to do with what you like about Miyazaki as a director. It definitely feels like the movie he made that feels most self-consciously like something... He feels like this might be his legacy. I'm going to get into this when I talk about my dusty old song, but this definitely feels like a movie made by somebody who's aware that this might be it. He might not get to make another one. It is I don't know if it's my personal favorite. When I was younger, that was Princess Mononoke. Now it's probably Porco Rosso, but it's up there. I really like its ambition. I like how surreal it is, which is not something I expect out of Miyazaki, and it kind of makes me wish he'd done more of that in the past. The bit where Mahito's talking to the heron and, like, the frogs start crawling all over him.
Yeah.
I mean, mostly it also makes me wish Miyazaki would do, like, something explicitly horror-based at some point, because that moment alone made me think, okay, you clearly have an eye for this. Will you get an opportunity? Will you do anything with that? If you don't, that's fine, but I would like that, personally. I think this dub does a really good job of matching what this movie is going for. I think it feels like a movie that is both... It is light and it is weighty, and it clearly has just a lot of thoughts about, like, art and creation and what the older generations owe to younger generations and vice versa. And what do these generations owe each other? Miyazaki has said he wants to make another movie. he's pretty old.
Yeah.
His movies take a long time to make. We'll see what happens. But, like, if this is the one he goes out on, this is a good movie to go out on.
Yeah. Definitely.
So, thumbs up, go watch it. Yeah.
I largely agree with Amon in the fact that it feels like the sort of surreality of The Boy and the Heron is something I feel like Miyazaki should have leaned into a little more in his career. This is also a spectacular film to go out on if that's what ends up happening. Dub is solidly constructed. Now, I probably wouldn't consider this my favorite Miyazaki film of all time, but I definitely feel like in the moment, in the now, it definitely earned the Academy Award and Golden Globe it won. In fact, I'd probably also go so far as to say is Spirited Away, while also in definitely the top 5 of the Miyazaki films. Probably isn't my favorite either. I mean, you know where my affiliations lie. But this is a very solid, poignant, feels almost introspective film about Miyazaki's life and the sort of stuff he went through as a kid, because as something that should be noted, he lost his mother in the bombing raids of Japan in World War II. So this does feel like sort of him getting some of that out.
Yeah, the other thing that I don't know if how much of this is like directly true, because if you look at most of the writing, they mentioned the thing that kind of got him out of retirement was doing a short for the Ghibli Museum that came out in 2008. 2018. You know what also happened in 2018?
Oh, yeah.
Isao Takahata died. And I always tend to forget, because they worked together for so long, that like Takahata was a good decade older than Miyazaki and was like at least to some extent his mentor for like the early parts of his career. And given what this movie is about, I have to feel like that's not a total coincidence, you know?
Yeah.
I have to feel like something in there is that feels relevant.
It's one of those really kind of philosophical, insightful looks into sort of life, death, and everything that happens in between.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a beautiful film, and I would definitely recommend giving it at least a check out, either subbed or dubbed, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But the dub is good if that's the direction you want to go.
Okay. My thoughts. I'm gonna agree it's not my favorite Ghibli. That honor is still Princess Mononoke. But it is definitely up there, because the film is just a beautiful take on grief and the next steps in moving forward with your life, especially if you lose a parent and all of the things in between. But it just adds a fun little fantasy flair to it, which I think is nice. The English dub itself, NYAV Post knew what they were getting themselves into, 100%, and they knew how important of a film this is. So they definitely took the time to make sure they got it right. And it 100% shows in the casting, the writing, the performances, the direction. It 100% shows all of the tender love and care that was put into this. Because, like you guys have pointed out, it could very well be the last film we get from Miyazaki. For all we know. It could very well be his final film. And if this is his final film, I agree with you guys that this is a really, really good high note to go out on. If you are a fan of Ghibli, I feel like you're going to enjoy this film and you're going to love it. I think it's among one of the more potentially accessible ones for those who may be starting out with the Ghibli catalog or may not be too versed in anime, because when you recommend anime to someone who's new to it, Ghibli always comes to mind first and foremost, usually. This could be a good one to introduce. This one could definitely be a good one to introduce to folks who are new to the medium. And just overall, I think it's beautifully well done. It's beautiful, it's poignant, and I just love every moment of it. And we need more Robert Pattinson voicing little guys. We need more Dave Bautista voicing little guys. We need more, who else do we say? We need more, technically, Florence Pugh voicing little guys, and Christian Bale voicing little guys.
We need to get more super respected actors in the booth to play just the most absolute gremlins possible.
Yeah. Like, having more of the having much more flexibility and creative freedom to play with these roles. I feel like would be so much fun to have. If you are interested in checking out The Boy and the Heron, there's primarily two ways to check out the film. They do have a home video release through GKids, and the film is also available for streaming on Max, formerly known as HBO Max. You can watch it through Hulu and Amazon Prime, but they do require you having an HBO Max account in order to do so. In terms of stuff that we here at Dub Talk do, you can follow if you're already checking us out on YouTube. Please feel free to subscribe to us there. We are also available in audio form on Podbean, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. If you want to follow us on any social medias, we have Blue Sky has kind of become more of the primary one at this stage. We are still using our Twitter account to announce episode releases and things like that, but for anything extra, you will need to follow us over on Blue Sky. We have our Twitch account as well, all of which at Dub Talk Podcast. If you want to support us in a completely different capacity, we do have, of course, our Ko-fi account as well as our Patreon account. Both of them are at Dub Talk Podcast, with our Ko-fi account being for one-time donations if you would like to support us that way, and our Patreon account being for more long-term support, where you can select a tier that you want to be involved with, and help us out on a more consistent level. And you could get some fun little rewards, including shoutouts like these lovely people. In our $5 tier, we have Bright Eyes 505, Crimson Echidna, Just J2, Quinoa Soup, Marissa Lenti, Megan's Mom and Dad, and Michelle Travis. And then our $10 tier, we have Anthony Brown, Carly Lesticow, Julia W., and Otaku Anthony. Thank you all so much for your continued support. If you're interested in anything that we do on a daily basis, my name is Stephanie. I'm also sometimes known as Lilac. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Lilac and TikTok at Lilac Anime Review. You can also follow me on Twitch. I have started doing Twitch things on my on my personal Twitch account. I stream Monday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. Also at Lilac Anime Review if you want to come and hang out as well. I have some weird, chaotic gremlin times as of my own. If you want to follow anything that Patrick does, you can follow him on Twitter and Blue Sky at Roots of Justice, though I believe Blue Sky is probably your primary one as well.
Yeah, at this point.
Yeah. In general, I think Blue Sky has become the primary social media platform for, like, all of us at the Dub Talk Podcast, because Elon Musk does not know how to run a fucking company except into the ground. Anyway, But I don't know if you have any other fun projects aside from dealing with house renovations right now. At home.
Once those are done, I'm gonna do a little bit of reevaluation and try and get some cool stuff off the ground.
That. As for Amon, you can follow him on Twitter and Blue Sky as well at Amon Duel US. Duel has 2 U's in it. Again, Blue Sky is the primary one though. And sir, you mentioned having a fun, dusty old song for us. Would you care to share?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, this movie feels like it is very much someone at what might be the end of their career, kind of taking stock of things, and if not their own mortality weighing on their mind, at least the sense that something is ending. And as it turns out, during the years when Miyazaki was retired, there was another artist who also made something that is about their mortality and things coming to a close. And that came out in 2016 on that artist's birthday, and they then passed away 2 days later.
Oh, okay.
I speak, of course, of a young man, not young at the time, but young once in his life, from Brixton, England, known as David Robert Jones. But you probably know for his stage name, David Bowie.
Oh, okay.
And in 2016, while dying of cancer, he recorded an album in secret called Black Star, and got to live just long enough to see it come out, mostly as a surprise to everybody, before passing away. And that's a great album, but my specific song to you is the last track on the album, and what ended up being the last single from the album, I Can't Give Everything Away, which feels like a good emotional counterpart to what this movie's trying to do. So check that out. It's good for you.
Wow, that's a deep cut of a recommendation. All right. I love it. Well, on that note, thank you everybody for joining us. I hope you had a fun time with us here, hanging out with some movie shenanigans. So depending on how things go, this could very well be the last episode of 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially. So if that ends up being the case, I hope y'all are ready for 2025, when Dub Talk celebrates 10 years of existing as a podcast, because we have some fun things in store for you guys. But you'll have to wait until 2025 to find out. On that note, again, thank you for hanging out with us. We will catch you guys later, and until then, otaku on, my friends.
Otaku on the Dubba.
Rock over Boston, rock on Chicago.